Now, the second body paragraph starts out with a purpose, but its wording is a little bit awkward, and here's how it goes. Colesville utilizes logos when he provides us with the perspective of the wealthy, and I get what they mean. He's basically saying that Colesville is trying to provide us the logic that comes from the wealthy, their point of view, their understanding, their rationale, right? It just kind of reads awkward. Reason being, logos is usually associated with statistics, data, evidence, and so forth. So in this case, I think the wording between logos, perspective, these two words here needs to be clarified with a further point. Maybe like Colesville utilizes logos when he provides us with the perspective of the wealthy and how they justify their circumstance or the circumstance around them. That would make more sense. I'd be like, oh, okay, that's how he's using logos. So in this case here, he's kind of saying like they're using logos to do this. To what effect is my question, right? Hope that makes sense. The wealthy think that money won't solve this problem because money will not provide a better education for the poor. Again, great place to throw in evidence because I want to see the language that the wealthy provide or even how Colesville demonstrates it. Furthermore, however, it's ironic because they put so much money for their kids' education. I love this point here because it shows the bitter irony of the American system, right? Because you have these rich people who are like, oh, well, money is not going to change the way things are. By the way, have some money for my kid. So this is a little stab that this author sort of recognizes in the reading. He informs us, and I'm assuming Colesville, because it's a little bit broad in terms of who this is. I know we have like one central subject here, but otherwise it's been a few sentences since then. But he informs us, quote, affluent parents pay surprisingly large sums of money to enroll their youngsters, beginning at the age of 2 or 3, in extraordinarily early education programs that give them social competence and rudimentary pedagogic skills unknown to children of the same age in the city's poor neighborhoods. So this is not a bad quote. This is actually a central point here to Colesville's piece that adds on to everything they said before. They say that money won't provide a better education. However, I'm assuming they are. A little bit on the spot editing. They say that money won't provide a better education. However, they're investing so much money into their own kids' education. And he says this kind of prior already. We understand the sort of contradiction or hypocrisy. So restating this, I would just say try to combine with the previous sentence, the one about the irony of it all, because it feels a little bit redundant here. Rich kids are at such an advantage because they have so many opportunities that the poor do not. Now, this is where we start slowing down, right? Because it feels like you're saying the same thing over and over. Your body paragraphs need to be concise. They need to make sure you're saying something kind of like on the nail, on the spot. It can't be the same point over and over. It has to keep diversifying, or it has to keep kind of adding more to the main point. So in this case here, if we're talking about the perspective of the wealthy, then we need to talk more about that perspective, or perspectives in general, poor versus rich, the wealthy themselves, the system of America, whatever. Colesville believes that every kid deserves an opportunity just like the rich kids, for they are the next generation, the next face of America. And this is where I have this term here called waxing poetics, which means that you are trying to make it sound flowery, you're trying to make it sound like emotional, whatever, right? And that doesn't really serve a place in an analytical essay because it doesn't say much, and at the same time, it just kind of like serves as a brief summary of the reading. When addressing this issue of the poor, this issue? Okay, I guess specifically this issue, like education. Everyone blames it on the unstable economy, but once the economy is stable, there's absolutely nothing being done. Good point. Definitely would like some evidence on that too, but this is not a bad point to throw in because it kind of shows how it's like, oh, the economy is bad, can't help education. Oh, the economy is good again, still not helping. Therefore, more and more kids are suffering from the problem. Yeah, true, but it doesn't really say that much more. A student named Aliyah from the South Bronx in New York wrote to Colesville, "We do not have the things you have. Can you help us? Kids everywhere in America suffer from not having the same things as the more fortunate kids." And two things before we end this here. I feel like this quote doesn't belong as an end here. I feel like this should be something in the middle where they can speak more about students who desperately need materials, right? It shouldn't just be like, oh, by the way, this kid said that they need help, and Kozo's like, damn. It shouldn't be like that. It should be a constant showing of how these kids are not being treated with the same luxuries as others. And careful with this repetition, right? Kids, kids, kids. This is a whole paragraph. I can't count how many kids there are, or how many times this author uses kids. Repetition. We want to try to diversify our language a little bit, and we're trying to just make sure that the language doesn't read to be tiring.